The Polar Eskimos' drum songs, or bihek, are a traditional pre-Christian form of entertainment, created by people who had no written language with which to impart knowledge or convey feelings and ideas. Today, Ayaku Michik, a 67-year-old former hunter and one of the first men to make it to the North Pole, is one of the very few who can remember these songs. He is one of just 770 speakers of Inugguit, or Polar Eskimo, a language of sighs and groans where words can be 50 letters long. His people, the Inugguit, live in the most northern, permanently inhabited settlement in the world. For a year, from August 2010, I had the privilege of living there with them. I went to learn and document their minority language, record their songs and stories, and to find out more about their disappearing traditional culture. Home for the Inugguit is the Arctic wilderness of northwest Greenland, the largest island on Earth with a population half the size of Cambridge. The Inugguit occupy an area the size of Germany. There is one visiting doctor and one policeman. For generations, these people hunted to survive, but now traditional food from hunting is eaten alongside Western produce, brought in at great expense on a supply ship. The rhythm of each day here is determined by one thing, and one thing only: hila, the word for weather, but also consciousness and mind. Before living in the polar north, I had never witnessed storms this unforgiving. But the darkness of the long dark winter is far more trying. On the 24th of October, the sun goes down for the last time and does not rise again until mid-February. For the uninitiated, this can be an energy-sapping, frustrating, and even depressing time. In the most remote settlements, life in this harsh climate continues more or less as it always has. Communities like Savisivik on Melville Bay are places where men smoke pipes, sitting with lost expressions and uncritical minds in cluttered kitchens. In some cases, their wives left them long ago, but they continue to live in the simplest of conditions because the life of a hunter is all they know. The oldest hunter here, Kangak Nilsson, was not convinced the settlement would still be open in 10 years. Climate change has meant it is almost impossible to reach the settlement by dog sledge, and few wish to live in such isolation in the 21st century. In the 24-hour sunshine of the summer months, the people of another remote settlement, Kakettet, hunt narwhals which arrive in small pods in May. Narwhal skin was for decades their only source of vitamin C. Here, a community of 22 hunter-gatherers cling on at the end of the fjord, living a subsistence life where what matters are family and lots of goodwill. In February and March, the coldest time of the year, the men of these settlements are away for weeks at a time hunting polar bears. Not all of them have to be hunted, however. During my stay, one bear was shot outside my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. The starving male polar bear had smelled the seal blubber lying around the settlement. Beyond the most remote communities, the Inugguit's world is changing. Supported by a generous Danish welfare benefit system, some choose not to hunt, preferring a less active lifestyle, the trappings of consumerist culture, and the digital entertainment of the West. The life of a hunter on the thin ice is too uncertain, and for many is losing its prestige. Yet there is little alternative employment in such a remote place. Life in these communities is static. Many have few ambitions or hopes for the future, and their lives are governed invariably by the spirit of apathy, disengagement, and ammacha, the word for perhaps or maybe. Often the young feel trapped. They have a very special bond to the land and their families are very close, but to stay might mean an uncertain future. The Inugguit were on the whole friendly to me, the outsider, but beneath the surface in this tight-knit community there exists a long-standing mistrust of the white Europeans, the legacy of exploitation by missionaries, traders, and even anthropologists. I learned much of the language from the children, whose curiosity was always very welcome. They also taught me their own body language. Raising one's eyebrow here means yes, pinching one's nose at the top means no, and the ubiquitous shrug of the shoulders means simply maybe. Here, Anne-Sophie is trying to teach me a few basics. I'm not a very good pupil.
Hvordan siger man nej? Igen. Hvordan siger man ammacha? Uten å si det.
The stories of the Inugguit represent a pool of indigenous knowledge about the sea ice, weather systems, place names, and the sea mammals on which they depend. For polar Eskimos, there is no one concept of ice, but more than 20 ways of referring to different forms of ice. There are 18 different types of wind too, but the young people here are unlikely to be able to name more than a few. They think the life of the hunter is too difficult now. By and large, the polar Eskimos do not believe in man-made climate change. They believe the weather changes in cycles. This is what their ancestors told them. But if the sea ice disappears, only to return 50 years later, the unrecorded knowledge bound up in their stories will be lost forever, to the detriment of future hunters. These are the last of the Inuit to live this way, traveling by dog sledge and hunting narwhals with harpoons. But their world is changing. The glaciers are melting faster than anyone expected. Movement of animals has become less predictable, and the Inugguit feel pressured by their own government to abandon their old way of life. The Arctic hunters believe strongly that we in the West have not listened to nature, and now we are paying the price. They think it is time to use our knowledge wisely.